So, I've been prepared for anything to happen because you never know what could happen. But I truly believe God got a big plan for me, and I'm grateful to bring y'all along with me and keep y'all updated on everything. Especially thank you to the Buccaneers for even giving me this opportunity. Y'all seen how the draft was. Y'all know I'm lucky to even get a shot. Seeing how Shedeur went, I knew what was gonna happen to me going undrafted. So to spend this time with the Buccaneers, to be able to learn from all the great coaches we have up there, and just being in a great building with some.
Shiloh Sanders just got cut by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. No warning, no heads up, just gone, and no one saw it coming. But what made this moment even more shocking was how fast he responded. Within hours, he dropped a YouTube video that left fans stunned not just by what he said, but what he didn't say. Calm, collected, and almost too peaceful for someone who just lost an NFL roster spot. Then, out of nowhere, Shedeur Sanders posted a cryptic tweet that instantly lit up the timeline. No names were mentioned, but everybody knew exactly who he was talking about. The timing was too specific, and the message, almost like a warning. So, what's really going on with the Sanders brothers?
And I truly just want to say I appreciate everyone for everything. I've had the best time up here in Tampa, but everything just happens for a reason, and it is what it is. I've been talking to my agent, and we're waiting on the next opportunity. If that's in the NFL, cool, but God's blessed me with a lot of talents to do other things other than play football, and I feel like in every athlete's life, it becomes a point to where the game ends for you. And I'm not saying that's what it is now. I'm just saying.
Was Shiloh's release just business as usual, or is something much deeper happening behind the scenes? Because right now, people are starting to ask, did the NFL just quietly shut the door on Deion Sanders' sons? Or is this just the beginning of a comeback story no one's ready for? Let's break it all down. No one expected Shiloh Sanders to be cut. Not the fans, not the analysts, and definitely not the people closest to him. And that's what made it hit even harder. Shiloh, the son of Hall of Famer Deion Sanders, had everything going for him, or so it seemed. He was coming off a college season at Colorado where he delivered consistent performances, gained national attention, and looked like he was following in his father's footsteps one defensive play at a time. When Tampa Bay picked him up, it felt like the next logical step in a growing legacy. But the NFL doesn't care about logic. It's cold, brutal, unforgiving, and just like that, Shiloh was waived. Even more surprising, there were no red flags, no drama, no locker room tension, just silence, followed by a headline that no one saw coming. In the weeks leading up to this move, team insiders only had positive things to say about Shiloh's presence. He was called humble, hardworking, and a student of the game. Coaches praised his attitude. Teammates respected his work ethic. And as far as public image goes, Shiloh had always kept things clean. No social media beefs, no off-field controversies, just quiet focus and faith.
The NFL is just, they call it not for long league. Nothing's ever certain. Even if you make the team, it's not certain. So you always want to not really have a backup plan, but you always want to have other interests that you're interested in. I've always done that my whole life, playing football.
So, when the news broke, people were confused. Not angry, not upset, just stunned. Even prominent Bucs fans online admitted it made no real sense. Some speculated about injury issues. Others brought up depth chart changes or potential trades on the horizon. But there was no solid reason, just a clean break and a cold transaction. And it wasn't just fans who were blindsided. Shiloh himself didn't even seem bitter, but his reaction told you everything. Instead of firing off frustrated tweets or calling out the organization like many young athletes might, Shiloh disappeared for a moment. Then, within just a few days, he resurfaced. Not in an interview, not on a press call, but through a calm 4-minute YouTube video.
First and foremost, I just want to say I believe in God, and I know God always got a plan for me. He always had, and regardless of anything that's ever happened to me, I've always came out on top. I've always came out winning, and I feel like this is just part of my story, to grow and do bigger and better things.
No filter, no notes. just his thoughts direct from his heart. Here's why that matters. In today's age, when most athletes react publicly in under 24 hours, usually through PR-written posts, Shiloh's approach felt different. He wasn't defending himself. He wasn't playing victim. He looked straight into the camera and thanked Tampa Bay. And that's when people knew this wasn't your average waiver story. Because if you listen closely, behind every calm sentence, there's a quiet tension. The kind of peace you only get when you've already made your decision. And maybe, just maybe, that decision had nothing to do with playing safety in the NFL. That's what made this moment so unusual. Shiloh didn't try to convince fans that his journey was over or wasn't fair. Instead, he talked about God. He talked about purpose. He even said, "This is just part of my story. God always has a plan for me." Now, keep in mind, this was at a time when other rookies might have been panicking, scrambling, second-guessing everything. But Shiloh? He sounded ready, not defeated. Still, despite his calm demeanor, people online couldn't help but ask, why him? Why now?
Whether it's finding another team, whether it's, getting another opportunity in the NFL, it is what it is. I truly believe God, and I don't question anything, and I believe everything happens for a reason. But, my time being up here with the Buccaneers has been nothing but great. Just the city, my teammates, my coaches, everybody's always poured in love and support towards me, and I'll forever be grateful for that.
Even if he wasn't a projected starter, Shiloh brought more than stats to the table. He brought media attention, brand value, and legacy ties that most rookies could only dream of. Cutting him wasn't just a football move, it had ripple effects on a much larger conversation involving Deion Sanders and the rise of Colorado's revamped NCAA program. Because when you cut a Sanders kid, people start paying attention. And some fans believe there's more to the story. There's been quiet rumblings that Shiloh wasn't going all in with Tampa, that maybe he was mentally checked out before camp even ended. Others say he had his eye on media ventures and branding long before his first official snap in the league. A few even speculate that his release was mutual, that he quietly agreed to cut ties in order to pursue other opportunities. Now, none of this has been confirmed. But that's the tricky part with stories like these. It's not always about what's said, it's about what isn't. Regardless of which version you believe, one thing's for sure, Shiloh being waived wasn't just a surprising headline, it was a signal, a shift in trajectory.
I've been seeing y'all's comments, y'all's DMs. I appreciate all the love and support, but I wanted to make this video today to make sure y'all know that I'm straight, everything great, and I just want to say thank you to everybody.
The kind of sudden turn in someone's story that makes you wonder what's waiting around the corner. And just as the dust began to settle, another twist appeared, this time from someone even closer to the situation, Shiloh Sanders. Because while Shiloh's YouTube video had fans puzzled, Shedeur's next move opened an entirely different conversation. While fans were still refreshing their feeds, trying to wrap their heads around the Buccaneers' decision, Shiloh Sanders quietly stepped into the spotlight. But not in the way you'd expect from someone whose NFL dreams just took a hit. New press conference. New tweet storms. New emotional Instagram posts. Instead, he opened up straight from his own YouTube channel. In a raw 4-minute video, Shiloh appeared calm, almost too calm. Sitting alone, speaking softly into the camera, it was clear this wasn't about damage control. He wasn't trying to fix his image or spin a narrative. He was simply telling his truth the way only someone who's made peace with a moment like this could. Right out the gate, he addresses the elephant in the room.
With some great players, it was a great experience for me, and I'm forever grateful for that. And I just want to make this video to let y'all know everything's great. And I'm just staying in shape, staying ready for the next opportunity, and we'll be ready for anything. I appreciate y'all.
As you can see by the title of this video, I got waived by the Buccaneers. No fluff, no hesitation, just facts. Then, in a moment that silenced his critics and caught the emotional core of his supporters, he dropped the line that would define the mood of the entire video. I believe in God. I know God always got a plan for me. Instead of focusing on rejection, Shiloh turned the story inward. He spoke about staying mentally strong, about trusting the journey even when it's brutal, and about having faith that wherever he's going next, it's all part of something bigger. It wasn't a reaction. It was a reset. And what really caught attention wasn't just his composure, it was what he hinted at between the lines. Shiloh openly acknowledged that football might not be the only path forward. He said,
mentally, I'm good because I know that I got a lot of talents and I've been blessed. And basically every athlete comes to this point to where you find yourself without the game of football, and then you thinking about what can you do next, what now? And you know, I'm thankful for my family, my friends, and just my support system. I've been cool, I've been good.
God's blessed me with a lot of talents to do other things, and I'm not saying the game is over, but I'm mentally good whether it is or it ain't. That line hit different, because in just a few short words, he pulled back the curtain on something most athletes struggle to admit, that football might not be forever, and that's okay. In fact, he didn't sound heartbroken. He sounded ready. He thanked the Bucs organization, his teammates, the fans, spoke with gratitude about his time in Tampa, expressed nothing but love to a city that weeks ago likely felt like the first chapter of his NFL fairy tale. But now, he was walking away like a man who had already seen something bigger waiting for him elsewhere. And again, this wasn't speculative. Shiloh didn't mince words about his many gifts. The dude is a skilled piano player, a model, an actor, and a creator. Even back in college, his charisma made him a magnet for cameras long before he put on an NFL jersey. So when he said, "Every athlete comes to a point where the game ends for you, and I'm grateful because I've been blessed with so many gifts," he wasn't exaggerating. And that's when the conversation started shifting. What if Shiloh already had something else lined up? What if he wasn't spiraling over this NFL setback because he knew it wasn't the ending, just a plot twist? Rumors immediately flooded Twitter, Reddit, and fan forums. Some guessed a new media deal. Others pointed to NIL-style brand partnerships Shiloh had flirted with during college. A few went even further, asking whether Shiloh might pivot full-time into content, entertainment, or faith-based outreach. Again, none of this has been confirmed. But here's what was confirmed. This wasn't a typical "I got cut" reaction. It was crystal clear that Shiloh was already looking forward, already planning, already locked in on something. We just didn't know what. And while fans were still dissecting every frame of the video, breaking down his tone, rewatching sound bites for clues, things took another strange turn. This time, from someone much closer to the situation. Because just hours later, as the internet buzzed about Shiloh's calm response and mysterious future, his younger brother Shiloh Sanders posted a cryptic message on X, formerly Twitter. No hashtags, no names. Just one line that made everyone pause. God doesn't make mistakes. When you realize that everything happens for a reason, you'll find peace in your situation. And just like that, the narrative cracked wide open again. Who was he talking about? His brother? Himself? Both? And what's really going on behind closed doors between the Sanders brothers and the NFL? Because if you think Shiloh's story is winding down, you haven't seen what's coming next. Just when you thought things couldn't get more mysterious, Shiloh Sanders stepped in and turned up the heat with a single post. No flashy edit, no public statement, just one line on X, posted late at night, that sent Twitter into a frenzy. God doesn't make mistakes. When you realize that everything happens for a reason, you'll find peace in your situation. That's it. No tags, no names, no explanation. Totally out of the blue. But the timing? Impeccable. This was posted just hours after Shiloh dropped his emotional YouTube video about being released by the Buccaneers. Naturally, fans immediately connected the dots. The meaning behind that tweet felt personal. It read like something only someone living through a storm would say. Peace in your situation? Mistakes? It wasn't hard to see who that might be about. But while some assumed it was Shiloh related, others think it was about Shedeur himself. Because around that same time, whispers started surfacing about drama behind the scenes with the Cleveland Browns. Nothing official. Just murmurs, unconfirmed talks that the Browns may have been eyeing Shedeur, or vice versa, with some weird tension surrounding the idea of him eventually replacing Deshaun Watson. Let's be clear, there's no solid confirmation that Shedeur is heading to Cleveland or even going pro this year. But it's no secret that NFL scouts have been watching him closely since his first explosive games at Colorado. In 2023 and 2024, he made it very clear he can go toe-to-toe with top-tier college talent. Some scouts say he's draft ready right now. Others say he's got one more year to prove something. Still, that tweet, it felt like both a warning and a prayer. And since Shedeur's not the kind of player who posts often without meaning, fans paid attention. Theories exploded online. Is he admitting that Shiloh's situation was unfair but spiritually necessary? Or did Shedeur just suffer his own hit behind the scenes? Is he watching NFL teams play games with his brother and getting fed up? Could the tweet be about both of them, quietly struggling against the pressure of NFL expectations? Whatever the truth is, it's clear this family doesn't do things the traditional way. Where most athletes turn to press teams and sanitized interviews, the Sanders brothers communicate through subtle quotes, YouTube videos, and emotionally loaded posts that invite speculation rather than clarity. Some say it's smart branding, others say it's just how they process. Either way, it's working because the internet's talking, and nobody can look away. But let's zoom out for a second. This isn't just a bad week for two young athletes. This is the kind of moment that reveals what pressure does to legacy. These aren't ordinary players. These are the sons of a football icon. Every move they make, every waiver, every touchdown, every bad game is magnified 10 times by the shadow of Deion Sanders. When Shiloh gets cut, it's not just a roster update, it becomes a "what is Deion going to say" moment. When Shedeur tweets something vague, it's not just about his mindset, it becomes evidence on the courtroom floor of public opinion. That's the weight they carry. And somehow, they've handled that pressure with more grace than most grown men ever could. But that doesn't mean it isn't starting to show cracks, and people are beginning to wonder, is this the tipping point for the Sanders family's NFL journey? Shiloh's emotional exit, Shedeur's silent frustration, and Deion's quiet handling of it all? It's leaving fans with more questions than answers. And those questions are only going to get louder the longer we go without the full story. If Shiloh's release felt like a shock, then the rumors swirling around Shedeur are starting to look like a slow-burning fire, one that no one wants to talk about publicly, but everybody's watching. Behind the scenes, it's no secret that Shiloh Sanders has had the NFL's attention. Coming off a high-profile run at Colorado under his father, Coach Prime, he wasn't just putting up solid numbers, he was building a brand. He plays with swagger, delivers under pressure, and he does it all while carrying one of the most recognizable last names in football history. Naturally, scouts took notice. By the end of the 2023 season, insiders were already predicting him as a top 10 draft pick, maybe even higher, depending on how 2024 shaped out. But then, things got quiet. Too quiet. Even though the buzz never fully disappeared, something shifted. NFL reporters went from saying he's next to he might declare if, big difference. And in that hesitation, a new name started creeping into the conversation. Cleveland. Now, rewind to earlier this year. Reports surfaced again, not confirmed, but cited by multiple sources that the Cleveland Browns were one of the teams quietly looking at QBs to develop long-term. No huge announcements, just scouting activity behind the curtain. And in those whisperings, Shedeur's name kept coming up. It made sense. The Browns are in a tricky spot. Deshaun Watson's situation remains a constant cloud between injuries, contract pressure, and performance inconsistency. The franchise has been tense. A fresh face like Shedeur, young, disciplined, and media-friendly, could theoretically reset the narrative and bring energy to a fan base desperate for change. But here's the twist. Shedeur didn't announce anything. No draft declaration, no official team meetings posted on social, no leaks from the Colorado camp about his future, just silence until he posted that tweet. God doesn't make mistakes. When you realize everything happens for a reason? So again, fans asked, was he referring to a private decision not to enter the draft? Or was it something deeper, maybe a door that closed before it ever fully opened? Some insiders now believe Shedeur was in fact approached by more than one NFL team about early draft conversations, including exploratory talks from Cleveland. However, allegedly, he either passed or wasn't ready. Others say he was ready, but teams weren't. That maybe, just maybe, the name Sanders invites a level of controversy that not every NFL front office is prepared to manage. As unfair as it sounds, legacy can be both a blessing and a curse. Even Deion's dominance at Colorado came with polarizing headlines. Critics have accused him of flash over fundamentals, too much media hype, or building a football family that plays by its own rules. And when your sons are key pieces in that puzzle, you better believe those accusations follow you to the next level. Which brings us back to Cleveland, because what if the Browns were interested but cautious? What if the pressure around the Sanders name created internal doubts about bringing another media storm to an already unstable franchise? What if something was offered and then quietly walked back? It's all speculation, of course, but the energy around Shedeur right now doesn't feel like a guy deliberately waiting for the perfect time to launch. It feels like a chess player watching the board reset against his will. And then there's the bigger question that no one's saying out loud: what if Shedeur is watching what happened to Shiloh and realizing he might be next? Remember, Shiloh had the talent, the mindset, the work ethic, and he still got cut. That kind of reality check hits hard, especially when you're carrying not just your own dream, but the weight of a last name built on NFL greatness. Being talented isn't enough, not when your last name is Sanders. For most athletes, getting released from a team or passed over in the draft is disappointing. But for the Sanders brothers, every move is under a microscope, not just because of who they are individually, but because of the name they wear on the back of their jersey. That name carries weight. And not the inspirational dream big type of weight you hear in documentaries. We're talking pressure, scrutiny, expectation. It's a legacy carved into NFL history with gold cleats, lockdown defense, and unforgettable swagger. Deion Sanders isn't just a Hall of Famer, he's a cultural icon, a generational game changer. Primetime wasn't just a nickname, it was a lifestyle, a standard, a spotlight that demanded something extra from everybody around him. That includes his sons. From the moment Shiloh and Shedeur stepped into the public eye, they weren't evaluated like normal prospects. They were evaluated like mini versions of greatness. People didn't just want them to succeed, they expected them to, immediately, perfectly, and under immense public exposure. And at first, it looked like they were handling it with ease. In 2023, Colorado football was the story of the season. With Coach Prime leading the charge, the Buffaloes became must-watch TV. Shedeur was lights out. Shiloh held it down on defense. Fans packed the stadium. Celebrities flew in to watch them perform. The Sanders family wasn't just running a football program, they were running a movement. But momentum is a fragile thing. Fast forward a year, and that rocket ship is showing signs of turbulence. Shiloh gets waived unexpectedly. Shedeur posts vague spiritual messages hinting at discomfort. NFL teams go quiet. And through it all, Deion remains composed but noticeably selective about what he says publicly. It's the kind of story arc you only recognize if you've been paying attention long enough. Because greatness invites criticism. And when you're building something as bold as the Sanders brand, you're not just fighting for wins, you're fighting for respect. Every mistake becomes magnified. Every private struggle becomes public drama. That's the double-edged sword of carrying a last name people already associate with perfection. For Shiloh, the pressure was always subtle but present. He never tried to be loud like his dad. He was quieter, more thoughtful, but still confident. He focused on football, stayed off drama, carved his own lane. And yet, the NFL still showed him the door. For Shedeur, the expectations are even heavier. He's the face of Coach Prime's offense, the projected pro, the quarterback with the coolest highlights and the cleanest drip. But when your dad is known for changing the game, anything less than domination suddenly feels like disappointment. It's not fair. But this is what the sons of legends deal with. And then there's Deion in the middle of it all. As a father, he's always said he wants his kids to be great, but he also wants them to be good men. The fact that Shiloh handled getting waived with maturity, that Shedeur speaks with gratitude in interviews despite the pressure, that's a reflection of how they were raised. Still, legacy has two sides. One side lifts you up, the other weighs you down. And right now, it seems like both Shiloh and Shedeur are stuck in that in-between balancing dreams of NFL greatness with the reality of a league that doesn't care about your last name once training camp ends. Because here's the uncomfortable truth. The Sanders name opens doors, but it also paints a target on your back. And now, for the first time, fans are asking, can the Sanders brothers survive the brand they've become part of? Or, better yet, do they even want to anymore? Do you think the Sanders name is helping or hurting Shiloh and Shedeur right now? Are they being judged fairly or held to impossible standards because of their father's legacy? Comment your take below. Let's talk about it. Aside of Shiloh, most people missed his hidden talents beyond football and the quiet hints that he might be taking his story in a completely different direction. When most athletes get released, their world spirals. For Shiloh Sanders, it shifted. Because while the rest of the football world was busy refreshing rosters and debating final cuts, Shiloh was already pivoting into something bigger. Buried inside his YouTube response, the same one where he calmly addressed his release from the Buccaneers, was a line that didn't get enough attention. "God's blessed me with a lot of talents to do other things, not just football." At first glance, it sounds like the usual motivational stuff. Positivity, gratitude, on to the next, right? But if you know Shiloh, and you've actually paid attention to his life outside the helmet, that line wasn't just fluff. It was a signal. See, Shiloh has never been just a football player. Sure, he's got the instincts, the discipline, and the Sanders grit on the field. But off the field, he's a whole different story. He's a classically trained pianist. He's done brand shoots and modeling work. He's been tapped as a speaker, youth mentor, even media personality. In fact, Shiloh has been featured in videos and commercials since long before he ever put on a Colorado uniform. His presence? Made for camera. His energy? Pure charisma. Those aren't side gigs, they're options. And when he said, "I'm not saying this is the end, but if it is, I'm good," that wasn't resignation. That was recalibration. It's rare to hear a 24-year-old athlete talk with that kind of emotional clarity after getting cut. No bitterness, no complaints. Just a quiet awareness that his path might be different, and maybe that's not a bad thing. Let's be honest, he wouldn't be the first athlete to shift course. We've seen players walk away from the game and thrive as actors, influencers, entrepreneurs, CEOs, musicians. With the NIL era and personal branding blowing up, it's easier than ever for athletes to cross over. But most don't plan for that. Shiloh has. From day one, he's treated the Sanders name like a platform, not a parachute. And now, for the first time in his career, he might actually have the flexibility to explore it. Fans are starting to ask, could Shiloh be pivoting toward entertainment? Media? Faith-based projects? Considering he comes from one of the most media-savvy families in sports and already has the camera presence, social following, and business mindset, the answer is obvious. He could do all of it. And there's another angle most people missed. In the video, he also said, "I've always come out on top. I'm not worried about what's next." That's not ego, that's experience. Remember, this is someone who's fought through injuries, transferred schools, navigated constant comparisons to his father and brother, and still managed to hold his own. He's been doubted before, counted out before, and yet, every time, he's bounced back with something people didn't expect. And maybe this release wasn't a setback. Maybe it's the end of one chapter and the beginning of one the NFL was never ready for. Imagine this: a podcast, a docuseries, music drops, speaking tours, or even a return to the league under a new team, when the timing's right. The possibilities are all wide open, and the best part? Shiloh looks excited about that. He ended his video with the kind of calm most men don't find until years after their playing days are over. If this really is the beginning of a career pivot, then the rest of us are just now catching up to where he's already headed. What do you think Shiloh's gonna do next? Will he fight his way back to the NFL, or is this the start of something even bigger? Comment below, let's see who's calling it early. So here we are, looking at a moment that could have been the end of something. Shiloh Sanders released. Shedeur silent but spiritual. The NFL seemingly pressing pause on the most talked about football family in years. If you just read the headlines, you might think the story's coming to a quiet close. But if you've really been paying attention, you know this isn't the end. It's the quiet before something major shifts. Because the Sanders family doesn't just play the game, they change it, and every time they've been counted out, they've come back louder, stronger, smarter. Let's not forget 2023 had everyone doubting whether Deion Sanders could coach a major program. Then, week 1 hit and Colorado exploded into national headlines. People said Shedeur couldn't hang at the FBS level until he threw for over 500 yards in his debut. People said Shiloh was just riding the family name until he was blasting ball carriers and showing NFL-worthy instincts on primetime screens. Over and over and over again, the Sanders boys prove something. Resilience is in their blood. But right now, things are different. Right now, they're being tested in ways no stat line or scouting report can measure. Shiloh is at the crossroads. After years of working toward one dream, he's standing face to face with a massive decision: fight his way back into the league or build something the league never saw coming. And Shedeur? He might be realizing that being ready for the NFL doesn't always mean they're ready for you. He's got the talent, he's got the numbers. But behind the doors of the NFL machine, politics, media pressure, and family names can twist outcomes in ways fans never see. Even Dion, as confident and composed as he is publicly, once said, "This world isn't built to keep you high, it's built to humble you." Right now, that humbling, it's happening in real time. But don't get it twisted, this family doesn't fold under pressure. They use it. If anything, what we're witnessing is a transition. One where Shiloh may stop trying to fit into the NFL box and instead start creating his own lane entirely. Where Shedeur finally gets the fuel he needs to go even harder against the colleges, the media, and the system that still underestimates him. Where Dion doubles down not just on being a winning coach, but on being the kind of leader that raises young men who know how to walk away from something with purpose. So, if it feels quiet right now, don't get comfortable. Because when the Sanders family gets quiet, it usually means they're planning something bigger than before. This moment, it's not collapse, it's strategy. A pause before the next plan. A reset before the next takeover. The NFL may have tried to sideline Shiloh. The critics might be whispering about Shedeur. But the people who know this family, they're saying one thing: don't blink. Because the comeback? Yeah, it's coming. Do you think the Sanders family is about to silence the critics again? Are we witnessing a setback or the start of a bigger legacy? Let us know in the comments, and if you've been rocking with this story, hit that like button and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Until next time, stay locked in because as Prime says, they doubted us, but we're coming. Believe that.